Hello and welcome back to my walkthrough of Final Fantasy 15. In the last episode, well, we were finishing off close to chapter 7, I believe, and we are now taking the time to explore the first of the DLC, the first of the Season Pass story content, and that is episode Gladiolus. So essentially, each of the three members of Noctis's retinue will get their own episode, their own period of time, their own little story to essentially explain various parts that weren't necessarily in the original game. For better or for worse, certainly some people would say, why wasn't it in the game in the first place? Others would say the gameplay is completely different within these individual episodes, so it wouldn't make sense being in the game in the first place. There's a lot of sort of questions about it, but you know, there's been a lot of debate about the sort of the DLC practice and stuff like that. However, I really enjoy these episodes. Helps obviously that I'm incredibly invested in the Final Fantasy lore, universe, etc. I love the game as a whole, and therefore more of it is only good news for me. But that being said, I can certainly see why some people would be like, we're just getting DLC, why isn't this complete, stuff like that. But anyway, we have episode Gladiolus right here, and it's pretty, and it obviously relates to where we are in the actual story right now, because, well, storyline, we've just, you know, throughout chapter 7, I believe, which is called Party of 3, obviously Gladio lets us know beforehand that he's going to have to go away, he's got important business to do, and he's about to return, essentially. He returns at the, probably at some point in the next episode, in the next main episode, I should say. So that means we need to know, where on earth did Gladio go? Why on earth isn't he there to protect his king? And that is the tale of this story, episode Gladiolus. So, you have a new game, the basic story mode. You have Score Attack, which is, I believe, unlocked once you finish story mode for the first time, along with the final trial as well. And so we are just going to start off with a new game. We're obviously going to play on normal because, I mean, come on, we played the rest of the game on normal. We should play this one on normal. So here we have it. After suffering a humbling defeat at the hands of Ravus, Gladiolus embarks on a journey of self-discovery. His destination, the Tempering Grounds, where he seeks to undertake a trial of body and mind that is heretofore afforded but a sole survivor. And the other nice thing about these additional little story snippets is that they also get to focus on one member of the supporting cast that maybe you would say did not get nearly enough attention in the main game, and a lot of this I can agree with. A lot of these sort of stories I can be like, you know what, actually we should be seeing more of this character, that character within the main game, and it's a pity that everything wasn't quite as fleshed out as, you know, as I'm sure before the turbulent time that the turbulent development period that Final Fantasy 15 has had. You know, I'm sure there were many grand ambitions at the start, and maybe only with these DLCs are they actually finally able to actually envision that and actually be able to complete that vision and actually be able to say, you know, this is what we have, and this is, you know, this is the story we want to tell. So, the Dual Master Glaive art is achieved by beating this, so we will say no to that, but it is incredibly useful. And we'll have another story.
I'm stuffed. My compliments to the chef.
My pleasure. Did you enjoy your time with the Marshal?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's that thing on your face?
This?
Yeah, X marks the spot.
That's just a scratch. The other guy got off a lot worse.
Worse than looking like some kind of thug?
Speaking of which, who was this other guy?
They call him the Blade Master.
So, we'll begin the combat tutorial. So yeah, so combat with Gladio is rather different to, battling with Noctis. We obviously have this great, huge sword, which has its, a wide range, a wide sort of surface, allowing you to actually, take out hit multiple enemies at the same time. We also have the ability to essentially block. It'd be nice if these enemies actually were attacking us. But it looks like, yeah, man, come on. Of course, now you attack me. So essentially, you can hold square. You can see the purple bar around the bottom. It means that you can't fully just, hold square the entire time. But what you can do is that obviously, as you can see, if you can nail a perfect block, then you can also hit a parry. And parries are pretty crucial in terms of the basic sort of combat here. So you'll also notice that as we tank hits, we raise up our rage meter down the bottom. The rage meter is important. It's essentially a damage multiplier, as well as when it comes to increasing the score that you get from in score attack mode, which is something that we will sort of discuss further when we get onto that episode. I'm thinking probably 4 episodes for this whole to get through everything here, as we hit the sort of the main a large story bit.
Yeah, who do you think it is?
Catch you at a bad time.
Are you here yet?
Yeah, I'm at the crow's nest.
Good. Thanks for agreeing to meet with me.
Sure.
So, are you ready to move out?
Of course. What about you? Are you mentally prepared?
Of course. I'll be right over.
About time.
What'll it be?
Just the water's fine. Thanks.
Allow me to ask you once more. Are you sure you're ready to take on the Blade Master?
I went up against the High Commander and got my ass handed to me. I didn't stand a chance. And I never will unless I get more power.
Then answer my question. Are you ready or not?
You think I would have called you here if I weren't?
So you're ready to face death. Gilgamesh awaits challengers in the deepest recesses of those ruins. It's been 30 years since we uncovered the caves. We've sent countless expeditions, but all of our efforts have afforded us no rewards. And no survivors.
Except for you. You undertook the trial, and you made it back alive.
Barely. Let's move.
Okay, so here we have it,
Defense
of
why you
muscle
were taking
and
off.
metal.
Just said it was business. Didn't want him getting all worried about me.
Or knowing your pride took a beating.
So yeah, like I said, probably 4 episodes, probably 2 episodes, maybe 3 going through the story mode. It's not too long, this one. But there are some pretty impressive bosses towards the end that will certainly occupy us some time. And then also we have...
No turning back now.
also have an episode on the score attack. So you notice that obviously there are items to pick up, much like this standard sort of game. There is actually a trophy for picking up every single one in this playthrough, in one playthrough. There are, I believe, 48 to be found. It's one of the sneakiest ones being right behind you at the start. I'll try and show you where they all are. I don't know all of the locations off by heart. At the same time, I feel like most of them are obvious enough, as long as you're, you know, paying attention, that you should be able to find them.
They're alive.
Not for long.
It's over. Who are you?
One of many who haunt these grounds, following our leader in death as in life. Not what our
So we can see that the
souls
soul
will
here is actually talking.
cling to the vestiges of our past.
Why?
To test those determined to become the King's shield and prepare them to inherit the power they pursue.
So, yeah, so the basic sort of,
Blade Master's men have sworn their
how this
loyalty
works is
both
essentially
before
as you
and beyond
attack,
the
you
grave,
gain
scaring off the
Valor,
unworthy.
which is,
Then they'd better prepare for disappointment. I don't scare easy.
yeah, so as you attack, you gain Valor, which is the orange bar just above your health. As you gain sort of to the little various ratchets, the various levels along that, that allows you to perform various Glaive arts. So for example, the stage 2 one is, yeah, stage 2 one I would say is Tempest, which works much as you saw there. The stage 0 one, which we have currently, and you can always use, is Earthshatter. And then the stage 1 is Razor's Edge, and so we'll try and show off an Earthshatter, because there you go, that's an Earthshatter, just a sort of a basic smash into the ground, sort of do a small area of effect damage. And then, so you've got Earthshatter, you've got Razor's Edge, you've got Tempest, and then you've also got a final one called Maelstrom, which I don't think we have access to until we defeat the first major boss, maybe the second major boss of this section, of this DLC. Yeah, and the Valor is important before dealing, if you obviously being able to use these Glaive arts that do huge amounts of damage. You've also obviously got your health, the big green bar, and then you've also got the, as we'll find, that's the other very secret item I would suggest, sort of the one behind the waterfall, always a secret behind a waterfall. Those are the two that you should probably, you know, be aware of. So the other one is Rage. So you can notice we have a Rage meter down the bottom. As we meet the first boss, this Brunnrsormr, as it spews acid at us.
Pathetic.
So you can see that as we block, which is what I'm currently doing now, our rage goes up. Increasing our rage allows us to deal more damage. As we get 2 consecutive link strikes, lovely. Make that 3. Link strikes are important, if you can get as many as possible. So you can obviously press square to dodge, along with, essentially, along with blocking. So tapping square with the direction allows you to do that. So we're very quickly going to be able to take out this guy. Beautiful.
come to prove yourself worthy of my mantle?
I do. I am here to undertake the trial of Gilgamesh.
And what is it you hope to glean?
Power. And you're gonna give it to me.
Is that so?
So, we now meet Gilgamesh here, and so what we'll find is that even if you try and block, you can't actually block his attacks. You see, we still take damage. This is a battle that, obviously, you are intended to lose. We are nowhere near strong enough for this, so...
Only he who possesses both muscle and metal of equal caliber deserves the honor of fighting beside the chosen king as his sworn shield.
You saying I don't?
A great evil threatens the people of your world. It is but the King of Kings and his shield who can safeguard their lives. All those unworthy or unwilling to rise to the task meet their end here, by my blade.
I ain't meeting mine anytime soon. This trial hasn't even begun.
If you do not fear death, then go forth with reckless abandon, and prove your worth.
So there, we have the first interactions with Gilgamesh.
Ready for this.
In that case, let the trials begin.
So the Blade Master.
He's a master of blades. What? Were you expecting something profound?
So essentially, yeah. So the rage meter is important. You block, essentially, you get that ranks up. You can increase it by, I think, in an entire step each time if you make a perfect parry, which makes, you know, perfect parries even more valuable to you. And essentially, you know, the key is to sort of just allow your rage meter to build up. Such that you're at 3 times, 4 times, and then deliver massive blows using your glaive arts in order to deal huge damage to all the enemies, you know, around you, or, you know, in many cases, a big boss. And that's sort of like the general sort of flow. So quite often, you actually at the start of a, you know, an encounter, you might actually just want to block for a bit, you know, take the hits. Have the guys increase your rage meters just so that your blows then deal that much more damage when, you know, it's your turn to attack. So you'll find that quite a lot of the little pickups are in sort of little nooks and crannies, hiding around corners, stuff like that. You've just got to be constantly turning the camera around, making sure that you're looking at everywhere, make sure that you're not just occasionally, you know, just wandering through places blind.
Rest up while you got the chance.
So, we'll have the chance to rest at a few campsites throughout this DLC. I think there's 4 in total.
Might as well take a break.
And what's cool at each one is that you also get the chance to then talk to Core each time. And sort of... Gladio has his cup noodle, I'm assuming that is. So we'll save our progress over this one. The top one was my first playthrough, so that one I quite like, and the middle one I never finished, so we might as well, you know, start again.
The Blade Master isn't here to train you, he's here to test you. He won't go easy on you just because you joined the Crown's Guard.
So, no mercy for newbies like me. So what? The weak aren't worthy of serving as shield?
In his eyes, the weak aren't worthy of living. All of them are fools, punished for aspiring beyond their station. I was a fool back then, too. And I was punished.
But you weren't killed. Maybe you weren't worthy of serving a shield, but he must have seen you as worthy of living.
Maybe he did, maybe he didn't.
So we start
Let's
understanding more about Core. Obviously, he has this, you know, this moniker, this title of
Keep your
being
eyes and
Core
ears
the
open.
Immortal.
Done and done.
You know, martial and, you know, almost legendary status here, and yet he certainly doesn't seem to be one to sort of, you know, take on that view of him, you know, view of himself.
Too slow. It's over.
Razor's Edge is actually pretty useful just in sort of like these small things, but generally, certainly when it comes to like, as we get another blindside link. One of the things I haven't talked about is the trophies, but we'll just talk about that. We'll just finish this first. But yeah, one of the general things you want to be doing is essentially only using like Maelstrom once we get it, because Maelstrom is incredibly good at dealing a lot of damage very quickly. So yeah, so the trophies. There are a few trophies associated with you know, with this playthrough. Essentially, you've got the basic ones, the standard ones, sort of like complete the. You've got complete the you know, just complete it. You've also got one for defeating the final trial, which I will hopefully be able to do and show on in an episode. There are two associated with score attack, getting 500,000 and 1,000,000 points respectively. And that's pretty tough. You sort of need to have a very direct and very good understanding of as to what's going to give you points. So parrying is incredibly useful. And you pretty much want to just abuse the parry ability all the time. It is also timed, so you can't just, you know, you can't wait around endlessly. You know, you do actually need to be constantly making progress. But
you have the spirit to survive these trials.
As the soul is going to taunt us somewhat. But no, yeah, no. It's not impossible, certainly not impossible, but yeah, you pretty much want to just be using lots and lots of parries, and hopefully I'll be able to show you getting over 1,000,000 points at some point. As we'll see a Reaper here. So these guys are really good for parries. They have quite large, quite obvious attack motions. It's no good though when we've got Core around who just, you know, wants to kill them, obviously. So, unfortunately, like, sort of just playing through the main story is not actually good practice for, it's not really good practice going into the score attack, just because Core will, you know, naturally, he still does a lot of damage to these guys, and for that reason, you know, he sort of takes care of a lot of things. I think you'll also notice that if we pause, or if we go to, like, the gear and stuff, we can't really change a lot of things. We can actually change the sort of... we can actually change the various things. The Rugged Attire is actually an outfit that we'll earn for completing... for getting 500,000 points in score attacks. So we'll actually wait for that. But I can actually go without jacket. And obviously we still have Core in the Core on the side as well. Can we actually see what his gear is? There's a Kotetsu and Crown's Guard fatigues. 232. So no, his 368 and 57 against 223 and 50. So far, and his strength is 232, whereas Gladio's is 67. Says quite a lot. Yeah, no, so yeah, so the trophies, you got the ones to do a score attack, and we'll get to that eventually. And then there's 3 that you can get sort of while playing through, a normal playthrough as well. There's obviously Picker-Upper, which is the one I mentioned before, which is essentially just collecting all these drops.
They keep on coming. You're mine. Let him have it.
And along with that, As we see, there are actually some more enemies, so we have to... So yeah, there's another one which is essentially akin to a collectibles. You'll also notice that we do actually... sorry, I'm getting a little off track here. But you can actually also increase your rage by taking damage. So even if you fail the block, you'll still increase your rage meter. And you'll notice that the rage meter sort of decreases over time. So when it comes to like score attack, when we're moving through things very fast, because it's all under a timer, you actually at times sort of want to finish an area with a ×4 multiplier and then try and run to the next area in order to try and maintain that multiplier before, before the next section. So yeah, I was saying that, so you got the picker-upper, which is picking up all the items. You've got another one, which is essentially another collectibles, which is when we start meeting columns, and there are columns that you can pick up and thwack enemies with, which is so badass. It's just great. Like, why wouldn't you want to just pick up a giant stone column and whack an enemy with it? It's great. But essentially, if you uproot them all, then you'll also get a trophy for that. And then there's also a trophy for performing 5 link strikes with core, which hopefully, as you can see from the, just from the fact that we got 2 in very quick succession already, it's not a difficult task getting those link strikes. So don't worry too much about it. It should come naturally. And if not, then just keep trying to aim for blindsides, keep staying near core, and eventually it should work.
What's this?
A trial chamber. The hand-holding stops here. Good luck.
So, in we go. To finish off the well-tempered Gladio, we have a battle with the second big boss and the first boss that we fight solo. And that is this, Nergal. And I'm pretty sure it's beating this guy that will give us the, So, if you try to block a guard of breaking, so essentially, what it's saying there is that essentially this Nergal, and certainly most of the sort of later enemies throughout this playthrough, they can have this capacity to go into a red stage like this. These attacks aren't blockable. Come on. Okay, so down goes the Nergal. That becomes a lot easier once we actually get a Maelstrom, which I think we do upon receiving the Soul's power in this room. So hopefully that'll be the case. We'll just do a quick scan for any items, but I don't believe there's any drops around here, so...
Our power goes with you now, young warrior.
So, there we go, we complete the first trial, and we can now perform blocks which, so we can now block much stronger, which means that if we were to, say, face Gilgamesh right now, then all of his attacks wouldn't just be like, wrecking us. So maybe Maelstrom is actually later on.
Your first trial may have ended, but many more await you on your road to an audience with the Blade Master. Prepare yourself.
That's the other thing you should note, that quite often you'll end up with areas where essentially your path gets blocked behind you and you won't be able to proceed. So just be aware that sometimes the game is actually going to lock the door behind you, essentially. We'll rest up here, and then I think we'll call this episode to an end. I've always wanted to sort of try and trim these episodes down slightly, so sort of having a shorter episode in this season, in this series would actually probably be a good idea. So yeah, 27, so that should be about half an hour. That's good. Okay.
My father never undertook the trial of Gilgamesh, did he?
No. You want to know why?
I do. I mean, it can't be because he was scared, right?
Not of the trial. He was scared of failing as leader of the Crown's Guard and as Shield of the King. He couldn't leave His Majesty alone, weakened by the wall as he was. After all, what good is a shield with no one to protect? What about you? Worried about leaving your Majesty alone?
A little. But I'm gonna do what's right for me, like my father did what was right for him.
So, there we have it. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Hope you will join me on the next.